What happened to the Romanov family of Russia in 1918? Or more specifically, what happened to Grand Duchess Anastasia, the last Tsar of Russia's youngest daughter? This is a mystery that began in 1918 and persisted for nearly 100 years until answers were finally revealed in 1991 and more fully in 2007. I had heard the story of the supposed murder of the Romanov family as a child in the 1980s. At that time, it was well known that the Bolsheviks had claimed to have assassinated the entire family, along with their servants, by firing squad. But they had never produced any bodies or evidence. The Bolsheviks had snatched control of Russia in a civil war, while Russia was simultaneously involved in World War I. In the decades that followed, Europe was plagued by people claiming to be surviving members of the Romanov family. Most were easily disproven, but others were not. My fascination with the mystery grew when I learned the bodies of 7 of the family members, along with the servants, were discovered in a mine shaft in Siberia in 1991, exactly where the Bolsheviks said they were. The bodies were positively identified by using mitochondrial DNA from Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh and husband of Queen Elizabeth II. However, 2 bodies were missing. The young Grand Duke Alexei, who was 13 at the time of the executions, and one of the younger Grand Duchesses, presumably either 17-year-old Anastasia or 19-year-old Maria. Since it was well documented that Alexei suffered from hemophilia with a nearly impossible chance of survival, Anastasia had been the identity most assumed throughout Europe when someone claimed to be a surviving Romanov. After the 1991 findings, new life was breathed into these claims. Hollywood took notice again, even making an animated and highly fictionalized account of the life of the missing princess in 1997. I was a teen at the time the animated movie was released, and this is when I really delved into learning all I could about the Grand Duchess, her family, and those who claimed her identity. The most famous claimant was a woman who came to be known as Anna Anderson. She claimed for over 50 years to be the missing Grand Duchess. She relied solely on the generosity of her supporters for her livelihood, and she was prone to frequent bouts with mental illness. She convinced many people in both Europe and the United States that she was Anastasia, and she continued to claim so until her death in 1984. She was never acknowledged by the courts or the most prominent remaining Romanov family members. After the exhumation of the Romanov bodies in 1991, her DNA was tested, and she was determined to have been a Polish munitions factory worker by the name of Franciszka Szankowska. However, many of her supporters still refused to believe the findings. The Grand Duchess's body was still missing, and Mrs. Anderson, as she was known, knew things about palace life a factory worker should have no way of knowing. The mystery came to an abrupt, and for most followers of the case, a disappointing conclusion in 2007. 89 years after the executions took place, the final 2 bodies were found burned in a bonfire grave near the mine shaft where the other bodies had been found in 1991. Their DNA matched the bodies of the other Romanov family members. While the mystery of what happened to Grand Duchess Anastasia has certainly been put to rest, questions remain about the most famous imposter, Anna Anderson. How did a woman who was born a poor peasant girl in Poland convince European royalty, scientists, scholars, and direct descendants of those closest to the Romanovs that she was a Russian princess? That is part of this historical mystery that may never be solved.